don't trust nobody. In Hollywood specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
This is what I look for. When I see a success, I'm looking for anything
to say that they didn't do it on their own?
Rumors suggest the documentary digs deep into the underbelly of Jay-Z's rise. Not just the music industry politics everyone already knows, but alleged connections, rivalries, and personal matters he's avoided addressing publicly for decades. Sources claim 50 Cent has been quietly gathering interviews from former associates, label executives, and even rivals who've been sitting on stories for years. For Jay-Z, stopping the release isn't just about avoiding embarrassment, it's about preventing a permanent, searchable record that could reshape how fans and historians see him. In hip-hop, reputations are currency, and once the public narrative shifts, it's nearly impossible to get it back. This battle isn't just about two rap moguls clashing, it's about who controls the legacy of an entire era. If the documentary drops, it could force other power players in the industry to pick sides, potentially blowing open old beefs that have been dormant for years.
A lot of people thought that he was just joking around. It turns out he's not, so this is actually a real project that's being made under his G Unit.
If those claims hold water, it would explain why Jay-Z is allegedly moving so aggressively to shut the project down before it premieres. A paternity dispute like Rymer's can be spun or dismissed in the press, but a string of similar allegations directly by the people involved, on camera, in their own words, would be far harder to control, and that's where the stakes skyrocket. Jay-Z has spent decades building a brand not just as a mogul and artist, but as a symbol of loyalty, discipline, and family stability. If 50 Cent's documentary portrays a consistent pattern of hidden relationships or secret children, it doesn't just damage his public image, it risks undermining the business empire that thrives on that image. In entertainment law, prior restraint, cases where someone tries to block a release before it happens are notoriously difficult to win, which means if 50 Cent really is this close to wrapping production, Jay-Z may be facing the very real possibility that the only way to stop it is to outmaneuver him in the court of public opinion before the film drops. If that fails, we could be looking at one of the messiest, most public reputation battles hip-hop has ever seen.
He took them to some apartment building, and you know, they did what they did in there, you know, talked a little bit, had a good time party. And I guess you know, I can't fully talk as my mom because I'm not my mom. I'm just telling you guys what she told me it was. And I honestly just believe it, you know, it's just.
That combination: historic legal maneuvering, quiet settlements, and new allegations stacked against older unresolved ones creates a perfect storm for narrative collapse. For years, Jay-Z's strategy appears to have been control through invisibility. Deny oxygen to the story, make it legally and financially exhausting for accusers to press forward, and rely on the sheer momentum of his cultural stature to outrun the rumors. But if 50 Cent's documentary stitches these elements into a single, coherent timeline complete with signed NDAs, settlement receipts, conflicting statements from lawyers, and on-camera testimony, it transforms isolated incidents into a narrative arc. And once a narrative arc lands in the public consciousness, it's nearly impossible to reverse. The danger isn't just reputational, it's commercial. Jay-Z's brand equity powers ventures from ROC Nation's sports management deals to high-level partnerships with global brands. In the corporate world, association risk is taken seriously. Too much negative press tied to personal conduct can quietly close boardroom doors and dry up collaborations. If the documentary goes live, as described, it could mark a pivot point where the public begins to reassess not just Jay-Z's personal life, but the entire mythos he's built around himself. And because 50 Cent is both well-financed and famously relentless when he scents blood, it's likely he's banking on the fact that even an attempt to stop the film will amplify its impact. In other words, the fight to kill the documentary might be the very thing that ensures it reaches the largest audience possible.
It's just competitive.
Competitiveness. All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really bother.
Okay, damn. All right, I didn't know what that meant. Okay.
That history between them means this documentary wouldn't land as just another celebrity expose. It would be received as a calculated, personal strike. For decades, Jay-Z and 50 Cent's interactions have existed in a strange space. Cordial enough for business overlaps, competitive enough for barbed verses, but never warm. 50's recent escalation, digging into Jay-Z's current vulnerabilities, amplifying whispers about legal trouble, and doing it with his trademark mix of humor and menace, suggests he's been laying psychological groundwork. If the documentary drops, it won't feel like a random journalist uncovering something. It'll feel like a long-planned ambush from someone with both the motive and the platform to hurt Jay-Z where it counts. his public legacy, and because 50 Cent operates outside the polite PR rules of the industry, there's no guarantee he'll hold back in tone, detail, or delivery. That's the wild card. Here, this isn't just a media threat. It's a vendetta with cameras rolling.
After that major documentary comes out on Diddy, then you're going to start to hear more and more about Jay-Z and his affair.
If 50 Cent really has that kind of material first-hand accounts of media suppression, settlement negotiations, and pressure campaigns, it's not just about alleged personal scandals anymore. It becomes a blueprint of how influence works in the upper tiers of the music industry, a rare peek behind the velvet rope that fans, journalists, and critics have been trying to see for decades. And the risk multiplies because of the Streisand effect you mentioned. Blocking the release might do the exact opposite of what Jay-Z intends. Instead of quietly killing the story, the fight itself becomes the story, pulling in audiences who otherwise wouldn't care. In a streaming market where controversy drives clicks, the banned documentary label would be gold for marketing. The alleged new family members come forward in camera with tangible receipts like photos, letters, or timelines. The conversation shifts from online gossip to something with the weight of evidence. That's the moment where denial gets harder, allies get quieter, and the public starts treating the whispers as history. This isn't just a reputational risk, it's potentially a legacy-altering moment.
Jay-Z got his book by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange? You got it. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your for.
Exactly, this is where the danger for Jay-Z moves, from gossip to narrative control. If 50 Cent's team really has given these people legal backing and a guaranteed platform that breaks the silence barrier that's protected high-profile figures. For years, these aren't anonymous Reddit threads or blurred-out faces on a late-night news segment. These would be fully visible, named participants, positioned in a slickly produced documentary with the resources to fact-check, verify, and dramatize their claims. The real weapon here might not even be the allegations themselves, it's the juxtaposition. Pairing an accusation with archival footage of Jay-Z talking about loyalty, family, or authenticity could create a whiplash effect that viewers don't forget. In storytelling terms, it's the perfect setup for reputational damage. Showing the public not just what's being said, but framing it as a contradiction of the image Jay-Z has built over decades. And in the age of viral clips, you wouldn't even need the whole documentary to land the blow. A 30-second segment, ripped and shared across TikTok, X, and Instagram, could spread faster than any official rebuttal. This is exactly why the rumored pre-release legal blockade makes sense once it's out. It's uncontainable.
A lawsuit filed against Combs in October was amended Sunday to include Jay-Z. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, says she was assaulted by both.
That's the kind of framing that can do damage without ever crossing into outright defamation, just association by proximity. If the documentary splices in archival footage of Jay-Z and Diddy together at parties, award shows, or in business ventures, and then cuts to headlines or legal filings tied to Diddy's current scandals, the implication is planted without a single accusatory sentence. Viewers connect the dots themselves, which is often more persuasive than a narrator telling them what to think. The danger for Jay-Z is that he's not in control of which dots get connected, even if the documentary never claims he was involved in Diddy's alleged crimes. Simply putting them in the same frame during key moments could be enough to make people reevaluate decades of association. And when combined with the paternity saga, the alleged settlements, and the idea of a pattern of suppression, it paints a picture that's bigger than any one accusation. The timing here is brutal too. If lawyers are trying to stop release and 50 Cent's camp responds with strategic leaks or teaser clips, we could see a drip feed campaign that keeps the heat on Jay-Z for months, even without the full documentary dropping. By the time it does, if it does, the audience may already be primed to believe the worst. This is why the Streisand effect you mentioned isn't just a risk, it's almost inevitable if this battle goes public.
I don't get no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me.
The notorious white parties, once symbols of glamour and influence, have now become a constant point of speculation. Industry insiders have long hinted at unsettling scenes behind the closed gates, guests far too young for the guest list, mysterious, uninvited figures slipping in, and security that seemed more concerned with keeping outsiders from seeing in than ensuring anyone's safety. Now, questions are being raised about Jay-Z's role at these events. Was his presence purely social, or did his close bond with Diddy place him at the center of a world now facing heavy scrutiny from both law enforcement and public opinion? And if those nights are re-examined under the glare of new testimony, how far could the fallout reach and who else might be pulled in?
Why does it all come to a head now? Why now? Why?
Because he's
the acceptable monster at this time, like R. Kelly was the last time I sat on this couch.
So who's next?
Y'all don't see the lineup?
Yeah, we see the lineup.
For decades, Jay-Z has been more than a rapper. He's built himself into a symbol of power and control in the music industry. His story is part of the culture, a self-made mogul who rose from the streets to billion-dollar status. That kind of legacy doesn't happen by accident. It's built carefully, piece by piece, with a constant focus on how the world sees you. When someone spends years shaping themselves into a brand, every move, every photo, every lyric is weighed against one question: does this protect my image or damage it? In that light, shutting down uncomfortable stories isn't just a legal move, it's survival. The pressure is constant. One wrong step can erase decades of work in the public's eyes. For someone sitting at the very top of hip-hop's hierarchy, the fear of a permanent stain is even greater. It's not just about avoiding embarrassment, it's about protecting an empire whose value depends on the image of being untouchable. Jay-Z's brand is worth billions, but it runs on trust. Trust from fans, from business partners, and from the cultural gatekeepers who decide who gets to stay in the Hall of Legends and who gets pushed out.
There's no artist, to be clear, there's no artist in this industry that's doing major numbers with these platforms that haven't sold.
That's why secrecy can run so deep. When someone has spent their whole life trying to outrun the shadows of their past, shutting doors becomes second nature. Every rumor feels like a threat. Every unflattering story seems like it could change everything. Even if the truth isn't that bad, the fact that it doesn't fit the carefully crafted image makes it dangerous. Over time, that habit of protecting the narrative can harden into something bigger: refusal to let anyone see behind the curtain, no matter the cost. And there's the human side, Tootha, real person behind the fame. Keeping a perfect public image isn't just work. It's exhausting. It creates a constant state of alert where the line between smart caution and full-blown paranoia starts to blur. In that mindset, blocking a documentary, shutting down allegations, or dodging court demands isn't just strategy, it's survival. It's the belief that if the walls stay high enough, the world will never be close enough to tell a story you didn't approve.
Now, he, of course, is more than annoyed, would be an understatement. He has a family and he has a lot to protect, including his brand. But to the extent that he's saying, hey, come after me criminally, that could be likely. Why do I say that? Because in New York, and what's alleged in this complaint is forcible compulsion. What that means in English is that it's saying that he held her down.
Seen this way, the fight over this new film isn't just about one set of allegations. It's the result of a lifetime spent protecting an image that has become both a crown and a cage. Now, with pressure coming from every direction, personal and public, the question is whether this fierce protection is hiding something real, or simply the reflex of a man who knows that even a hint of imperfection could crack the empire he's built. And then there's Beyoncé. She's built her own empire, one defined by discipline, artistry, and near total control. But behind closed doors, the pressure on the Carter household has to be immense. One industry source claims she's working closely with a crisis management team, planning every move, every appearance, every word. Another says she's torn loyal to her husband, but fully aware of the risk to her own legacy if this spiral keeps growing. Could she be pushing Jay-Z to quietly settle the paternity question, just to close one dangerous door before another swings open? Or is she preparing to step back from the chaos, entirely protecting her brand, even if it means putting distance in the marriage?
And we may actually see one of the biggest divorces in Hollywood is because Jay-Z's up next to be exposed.
Whispers are growing about cracks in the empire, small but impossible to ignore. Jay-Z and Beyoncé are appearing together less often, skipping joint interviews and spotlighting separate projects. Their last major red carpet moment, the premiere of their daughter's film, was meant to project unity, but online it sparked the opposite. Fans dissected every detail: the space between them, the stiffness in their smiles, even the timing of their steps. For a couple that has perfected image control, those tiny breaks in the pattern speak volumes. And if 50 Cent's documentary ties Beyoncé into the story, even on the fringes, it could shift the entire narrative. Suddenly, it's not just about court filings and hidden family ties, it's about whether one of entertainment's most iconic power couples is buckling under the weight of shared scandal. That's the kind of subplot that keeps a story alive for months: love, trust, and betrayal, unfolding under the brightest lights.
What I've heard about them as a couple is that they've been living separate lives for a very long time.
And then there's the detail that refuses to fade: the DNA test. Reimer's push to get it has dragged on for over a decade, stuck in courtrooms, sidestepped with procedural loopholes, entangled in debates over jurisdiction. But now, legal momentum is building again. With renewed media attention and a looming documentary, refusing the test could become harder to justify. We've seen how quickly this can turn. One court order, one judge willing to take a fresh look, and suddenly the test is unavoidable. For Jay-Z, the stakes couldn't be higher. One result could shut the door for good. The other could blow it off its hinges. If he takes the test and it clears him, the win would be loud and public, a rare chance to flip the narrative in his favor. But if it goes the other way, the fallout would be instant. Every denial, every delay, every lawyer's motion over the past decade would look like part of a calculated cover-up. And that wouldn't just damage his personal life, it would hit the business, the brand deals, and the cultural standing he's spent decades building. One test could answer everything. But is Jay-Z willing to gamble at all?
Felonies, I'm not crazy and none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
Which brings us to the question hanging over everything. If the truth comes out, will it mark the fall of an icon or the start of a reckoning for the entire industry? Could this be the story that forces not just Jay-Z, but the whole upper tier of hip-hop's elite to face a past they've worked to keep buried? So what's your take? Is Jay-Z protecting himself from lies or hiding from the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll be watching every word. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and remember, in this game, nothing stays buried forever.